365 Days of Horsemanship, day 343 and day 344. Yeah, really lovely days actually. I've been ill this week, so I missed I think 3 days, which was a real bummer. But it was actually really nice to feel so bummed about it, I guess. I don't know, like, maybe that's a weird thing to say, but like, but yeah, like, Tuesday I had day 343. I didn't have too much time. I wanted to give some more time to Lawrence, because I'd ridden Mia a couple times a few days before that, and so I ended up playing with him, just with a lot of, again, that work with me on 4 legs, like on hands and knees, and just some work on some touching distance. But again, it just felt really organic, like I'm just really still enjoying this very light, like flowing way of being with them, and just kind of relaxing into the imperfection and just allowing myself to really feel like present with them, and that was really nice. And then went and gave Mia a bit of a massage because we'd had some heavier sessions, ridden for an hour at a time, and so I just wanted to kind of had a few minutes, and I just wanted to kind of use that to take care of her a little bit. Then I had my second session with Rachael Beesley from Equisentient Coaching, which was really interesting. I definitely feel like, Rachel's work is definitely something that I'm sure some people would be dubious about. Rachel's basically an animal communicator. And so the format is you call her and you have a telephone conversation, and you've sent her some pictures of your horses, either alive or deceased, and Rachael will connect with that horse and facilitate a sort of 3-way conversation. And yeah, I thought it was just really interesting. I've done it once before with Mia and Lawrence, and yeah, then doing it again this time, I think I definitely got a lot from it. I got a lot from the self-reflection. With Mia, we talked quite a lot about I guess communication between Mia and I, and how we usually communicate, and giving myself permission to test things with her and push the boundaries. And yeah, and I feel that what we talked about was really helpful, really interesting, and it was nice to kind of give myself the permission to kind of play around a bit with a bit more stuff. A lot of it was around this idea of like Mia being very keen and very curious and very interested, which definitely matched with the energy that I have felt from her recently, and so that was really interesting. And then with Lawrence, kind of recognizing the difference in energy, and Rachael said that the slowness of his energy really came through for her in a way that she hadn't really noticed in a previous call. And I thought it was really interesting because I definitely have felt that too, like this sense of like him and I being on slightly different like energy platforms. And I think when I first had him, because he was so anxious all the time, I think we were on a slightly more similar level, whereas now we're, he's a lot more relaxed. And Rachael kind of described it as being slow, like slow to move through ideas. Like he likes to sit and rest on an idea for much longer. And I definitely think that that's probably a feeling in the relationship that I would agree is there. And it was really interesting because we also talked about like where we go from here and how we can kind of better connect with each other. And yeah, I came up from that with this idea of kind of doing like horse yoga, and trying to think about mobility exercises and things like that. So things I can kind of do with him in the field. I need to do a little bit of research on that actually, to work out exactly what I'm going to do. But yeah, it was a really positive conversation. It was a really nice, relaxed session. And yeah, then basically went home and laid in bed sick for 3 days. And today's the first day that I've actually finally felt well enough to come up here. And yeah, had a lovely day today. Went down to Lawrence, first of all, and been working a little bit, thinking about kind of almost like massaging him, but very lightly, like turning this craving for scratching into like a sort of craving for touch and trying to kind of like subvert it in that way. And I think I'm kind of being successful. I basically have ended up in a place where he's actually suddenly become really very tolerant of like sort of, it's like slightly harder than stroking, kind of like running my hands over him. As long as my hands are moving, he's pretty kind of happy with that for quite a long period of time, and it's pretty it's pretty much guaranteed that there's going to be like a positive change out of that. So we're kind of almost leaning into acceptance as well. And so that's really interesting. And we also we got quite a few moments kind of that just came up organically where I was able to like pause, have the focus change, have my hand on him still, and then take it off. And have that be a really just positive association with my hand being there. I think it's really interesting because like cultivating curiosity, you know, if everything is very regimented, it doesn't really foster curiosity. So it's a really interesting thing because it's sort of like, I kind of feel like this new energy that I've been bringing probably the last week or so, that's been a lot more relaxed and organic and kind of flowing. I really feel like that energy is almost necessary to stimulate more curiosity, because obviously what I'm looking for is him to become curious about things like yields, right? But I think it's interesting because I could practice the yields over and over again and try to like reinforce the same behavior over and over again, you know, like a task to be completed. Whereas this way, it's kind of like I'm noticing that he is becoming more curious in the moment when I am more relaxed and more ready to flow. And then when he's more curious, opportunities to practice come more often than when I'm trying to like enforce a particular training regimen on him. I think that's a really interesting like conundrum, because obviously like black and white, we kind of want to just be able to like, you know, turn up, like set a workout plan, right? It's like, this is the plan, we're going to do this for this many days, and at the end result is going to be this. And actually, where I'm finding kind of, I'm getting more curiosity and I'm actually reaching my goal quicker, is where I'm not trying to create a regimen. I'm just kind of turning up and feeling my way into the session. And then as the curiosity is building, then there's all these moments that I can like organically notice and like capture. And that also kind of feels a bit more magical and it's a bit more fun for me as well. That's much more my style than this kind of like very strict, like disciplined training regime. So yes, that was really good. I was really happy with the session generally. He was in a really curious place. today, and so that was just really nice. Lots of focus changes, and yeah, lots of touching distance, lots of good moments at the touching distance, which is really nice. I do feel like those are starting to build now into something, so that's really nice. Then went to Mia and brought her up and managed to ride her for it's funny actually, I said, oh, I'll just do a short ride, and actually when I finished I realized that it'd probably been like, you know, nearly 45 minutes. So yeah, it just goes to show time flies. Yeah, really, really good actually. Last time I rode her, I set up the same pattern with the poles in the arena, and just kind of like a figure of 8 type pattern with like, yeah, kind of a figure of 8, something like that, figure of 8 slash, yeah, figure of 8. And it was really interesting because last time I had used quite a lot of pressure to be clear about the fact that I she didn't need to keep speeding up when she's in the trot, and to help her try to find some rhythm and some relaxation. And today there was so much more rhythm and relaxation, so much faster with so much less pressure. It was really interesting. I went out and I did my I kind of start off, I don't actually take the bridle off because then I have to put it back on again. But I start like reinless, so I just do like kind of carrot stick riding, and I'm just walking on the pattern that I'm going to be trotting on. I'm just walking, practicing the turns, using just my legs and then the stick to reinforce if I need to, and just as a guide. And then in the trot we're not quite there yet, so then I have to drop the stick and just pick up the reins, and then just use the reins to just help me either slow her or guide her around those turns. But yeah, today we were able to find so much more balance, and I had a lot more balance in my body as well, and I think that does help. And so that was really nice to come back and kind of have a session and feel like I had gotten fitter, and I felt like noticeably more balanced, and she felt more relaxed. And yeah, and we just had this lovely, I think it was remembering the big thing that I think worked out this session with Mia was remembering to stop when something good happened. Because it's really easy to be like, oh, everything's going great now, and then you go through all the greatness, you miss the last moment before it starts to get worse again, and then you end up stuck in that cycle. Whereas actually being like, oh, this is going really well, we should stop now, take a rest, and think about how good that was. So it was like, oh, it's going really well. She blew out. I was like, great, let's stop, let's walk for a bit. Stopped and walked for a bit, picked the trot back up, did that again, stopped and walked for a bit, picked the trot back up, and we were able to do almost a full cycle of the pattern with a really nice rhythm. I only had to kind of like just a few tiny little, like literally just like a half hold, just like pick up the rein a little bit, and she just was like, oh yeah, literally like so subtle. And she put her head right down, started blowing out, and I was like, yeah, that's really nice. Started walking again and thought, do you know what, actually I should quit there, that should be the end of the session. And yeah, hopped off, and she had loads of yawning, licking and chewing. It was just really nice. It was really nicely timed, everything. I just felt really pleased with that. I just felt like it had just all the bits had come together. I felt like I actually did some training, trained her about a thing successfully. She had a good time, I had a good time, we achieved a thing, all boxes ticked. So yeah, so really good, really pleased. And I definitely think that yeah, having had the session with Rachel was really positive and really powerful. Like, you know, we did speak about that, and we did actually speak about the trotting thing, and I was asking kind of like what's there that's creating this feeling, and she was saying that it's a feeling that this feeling of stress and anxiety is there before I've even put my foot in the stirrup. And I think that's actually very true. And one of the things I was also thinking today is it would really be good, it would really be ideal for Mia if every now and again you know, a couple times a month, every few sessions, I get her up, I go through the motions of everything up to riding, and we practice putting the saddle on, we practice the walk, you know, the warm up on the ground, we practice the mounting, and we just go through all of that, and we just try to work through her feelings at every stage, because I can feel that that's where the anxiety comes up. And by the time I'm actually on board, even if I ride really nicely and we have a really nice session, we've started with that anxiety, because the idea of being ridden gives her the anxiety. So it's like kind of trying to come back and work on that. On the one hand, there's kind of two ways you can go about it, right? You can go about it you can push through to the other side, or you can kind of completely respect that boundary and chip away at it from behind, right? And the freedom-based training way would dictate that we do it from behind, because you know, that's the principles, right? Because of Mia's life being different and her not being a freedom-based training horse, obviously we do freedom-based training together, but that's not what she does with the other people who ride her and in the rest of her life. So it's a good opportunity for me with her to practice the other side of the equation, and to say, okay, actually, we can push through it to the other side naturally over time by having positive experiences with riding. The anxiety before riding will lessen. I personally believe the only way to completely, like, not eradicate, but to completely resolve the triggers for that anxiety is to work at it from the start. That's my personal belief. That's why I love the freedom-based training program so much, because I think it's the only training program I've ever seen that actually fixes problems for the horse. Usually problems are fixed between the horse and the rider, or provided that a certain coping mechanism or strategy is in place, then that problem remains fixed. But there's usually an amount of stress or pressure that will break that problem again. You know, for example, you've got a horse who's a pull away, or you've got a horse who's a this or a that or whatever. You know, a horse who's bad at loading, a horse who's bad at this, a horse who's, you know, all those historical problems, you know, a horse that's bad at bridling or being tied or whatever. There is a level of stress that will re-trigger those behaviors. And from the freedom-based training work, that's the only work I've ever done where I've seen such a transformation in a horse, where a behavior that they displayed, they now don't even display it in their personal lives outside of what we're doing, because it allows you and it allows them a safe space to actually express and process the emotions they have behind that behavior. So yeah, so that's my preferred way of going about things. But the con of that is that it's a super slow process. And definitely this way is faster, and it's good, definitely really good for me to practice this way too. So yeah, I'm really happy with today.